Hi everyone, Fiona Pearman and Kate Borer from Core Confidence here. And today we're talking about what gets in the way when we go to build brand and profile. And often we notice when we start looking at this topic, people are quite resistant. They're very worried about, am I going to be seen as self-promoting and egotistical? What are people going to think about me if I do more to assert myself and advocate for, what's important to me?
Yeah, I think often we think this isn't something we should have to do. Hard work, loyalty, know your stuff. All of the things that particularly as women we really pride ourselves on and give a whole lot of time to. And look, I think also is a really good strategies early in our career in terms of, doing the work, being seen to be strong, loyal, successful. The challenge is that strategy doesn't return the same dividends the more senior you get. And the more senior you get, the more important that it is for key stakeholders in your organization to know who you are, the value you bring, the problems you solve, your capabilities, more about who you are. And I think that isn't always easy to do. It's easier to do when you are in direct proximity with someone. You're working on a project together. Of course, if they're your direct line manager or perhaps your two-up line manager or two-up manager, that's easier to do because people have proximity to you in terms of the natural course of your working week and month. Much harder to do if you're not naturally within the same area, conversations, office, when we can go back to offices as well. So I think this is a challenging one, and one where all of us have lots of really good stories as to why we shouldn't need to do it, we don't want to do it, or we can't do it. The reality, though, is all of those are protection mechanisms, hiding often the fear, right? And the two key fears that are present here is I'm worried or fearful that I'll be judged. If I put myself out there and stand for something and represent, this is who I am, this is what my capabilities are, that others may potentially look at that and say, hey, you're not that good, or you can't do that. And we don't want to risk that kind of judgment. But I think secondly, particularly in Australian culture, we don't want others to look at us and think, oh, you're big noting yourself, or, you're arrogant. So I think there's definitely some tricky dynamics for people to navigate here.
Yeah, definitely this fear that comes up and, not being liked, all of those things. And there's some truth around this, right? And like the reason stories kind of get blown up and we start getting activated by them is there is a layer of truth in there. There is to some degree a certain amount of risk. If we're going to start publicly declaring, what it is we're good at and advocating for ourselves and talking about our wins and talking about the great work we're doing, to some degree, there may be some people who push back. Our experience is it doesn't happen all that often. The fear is far bigger than the reality around this. So it's really important to start thinking about, and starting to question some of those fears. The other piece that we hold really importantly here is there's a huge cost to not doing this. The truth is that there are plenty of people who are making themselves heard, who are speaking up, who are positioning themselves, who are speaking to people more senior in the organisation, and who are making those stakeholders aware of their work and their accomplishments. So there's a real tension here to start grappling with and to sort of unpack some of those fears and test the reality of them, but also to start looking at and evaluating the cost if we don't go there and we aren't prepared to start doing more of this work, to be conscious of our brand and profile and the reputation we're creating with our stakeholders.
Yeah, and I would suggest for everyone to think really deeply around the cost of not being seen and visible is far greater than the risk of perhaps being judged or not being liked or being seen as arrogant. I think in our experience, when you do the work to right size those risks and those fears, in our experience, it kind of goes from high probability to a very low, small percentage probability in terms of the reality of that happening. And so that's the work to be done here, is firstly to get clear about who you are, what you stand for, articulate and share your value is week 2 of Acts of Confidence. That work is definitely valuable in terms of being able to have good language to accurately articulate the value you bring, the problems you solve, the impact you have, the contribution you can make in an organization. Really valuable work. to be done and to really commit some time to. But even if we do all of that, if we haven't dealt with the roadblocks, the red flags that are in the way, that are going to stop you from leaning into those conversations, to kind of sharing more with senior stakeholders, for asking for, coffee dates or virtual catch-ups or whatever it is that we're doing in this environment, if we haven't done the work to remove the roadblocks and the red flags, we're going to kind of procrastinate. We're going to choke even at the thought of doing that. And so the reality is, it's the fear that we really need to deal with.
Yeah, so the sooner we do that, the sooner we can move into action and start to make some inroads around this topic. So look, if you enjoyed this or any of our Core Confidence conversations, please tag a friend or a colleague. We'd love to welcome more people into the community. If you'd like to go deeper with your relationship with Core Confidence, go to our website, www.coreconfidence.com.au.